Welcome to the Power Exit Podcast. This show is dedicated to business owners who want to scale up, plan smarter, and prepare for the ultimate exit. We'll talk with M&A experts and owners who've been through the process to provide actionable advice so that you can sell your business on your terms and without regret. I'm John Marsh. Join me as we prepare to take control of your exit. All right, welcome to the next episode of the Power Exit Podcast. I'm thrilled to have Peter Chatel here, who's a friend and a coach. He's helped coach me and helped me to get our practice to where it is. So, Peter, I'm thrilled to have you on the podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, John, it's my pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you've got an interesting background, right? You've had a career at a large, Fortune 50, maybe even Fortune 10 company. But tell us a little bit about your background as far as corporate leadership, your advisory roles, and now running a successful real estate practice with your wife.
Yeah. I've prior to joining the Coca-Cola company, that's probably the company you were referring to.
Yep.
I had 7 years with a consulting firm based out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. That was Arthur D. Little, and I was in their environmental health and safety management practice, and was fortunate enough to join them when it was a small group of 5. I was the 5th person in, and when I left, I was leading a team of 44 professionals doing roughly 300 environmental health and safety audits a year. And I was recruited away by the Coca-Cola company to help start the first corporate environmental management program in 1992. And after 3 years kind of doing that, they asked me to take over the global quality audit function, which they were centralizing. And so I led that group. That was an interesting 7 years where we basically centralized, and I had 115 auditors in 34 locations around the world. At the time, I thought, I don't know if this was ever proved to me, but I was leading the most diverse single unit in the Coca-Cola company, 34 different locations, 115 people. I then morphed into different quality and technical leadership roles. After that, I joined the North America business unit for about 10 years, was involved in providing quality technical leadership to the company-owned facilities in North America, and then morphed into providing leadership for technical advisors to our bottlers in North America, and then moved back into corporate for the last 5 years of my career, providing guidance as kind of the right-hand person of the chief quality officer for global programs, and finished off my career heading up a group of professionals that managed about 4,000 supply points that were what they called at the time liquid food suppliers. These were all the juice, coffee, tea, and dairy suppliers of the Coca-Cola system globally. Took a package in 2015, then started my own consulting and coaching practice. That's where we met and worked with you and several other business owners. About 4 years ago, my wife came to me and said, it's fine you're doing what you're doing, but I need you full-time in our real estate business. Really started to take off. And I got my real estate license in 2019. I'd always helped. She started the business in 2011. I'd always helped her in the background doing whatever needed to be done. Got my license in 2019, joined her full-time, got it 2021, and have been director of operations for our team since. We made a strategic decision in 2022 to partner with a prop tech company called Place, and they provide us our technologies and operating system that help basically scale our team and also make us more productive and profitable. So I've learned a lot through them. Wow. Along the pathway, at Coca-Cola, one of the things that was very instrumental in my coaching approach is that we piloted the work with Franklin Covey before they wrote the 4 disciplines of execution on the 4 disciplines of execution. So we were one of several organizations they piloted that with. But while I was in North America business unit and supply chain operations, we implemented that across 23 of our manufacturing locations and became a practitioner of that particular approach. So that that's a little bit of a snapshot of my experience and background. I've been inside. I tell people I've really had a good look at probably well over 200 different companies across my career. I've seen really, really poor leadership. I've experienced poor leadership firsthand.
Yeah.
Perhaps sometimes I've demonstrated poor leadership.
No.
I've also had the blessing and opportunity to experience some really outstanding leaders.
Yeah.
And I'm also on the John Maxwell team. One of the things I did after I left the Coke, one of the first things I did was join that team, became a certified coach, trainer, and speaker. And John says something I repeat frequently: everything rises and falls on leadership.
Mm.
So
I love it. Well, we could talk about a lot of different topics today.
yeah,
One of the things I want to focus on, though, is the similarities between what you do on the real estate side and how it applies to selling a business.
yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about with your executive roles, your leadership roles, and now real estate. What similarities do you see overall between maybe selling a house and selling a business?
Well, I think there's tremendous similarities. And in fact, you know, I would say, sometimes selling a business includes a real estate component,
Sure.
either commercial or sometimes a uh, residential slash commercial. So, you know, uh, the direct analogy in my mind is the sellers we work with. We work with very consciously to encourage them to do everything they can to prepare their property, if you will, their business for sale,
Yeah.
and to take off the the eliminate as many objections that might come up during the sale as possible. So what does that translate in terms of residential real estate? Well, we are big proponents on having a pre-listing inspection by a professional inspector, and sometimes even uniquely professionals inspectors. There may be structural issues, or that may be a concern that we sense. We will have a structural engineer come in, a separate and apart from the inspector, because most of the inspectors you hire have general expertise. They may not have specific expertise in areas. We we may we may request a separate roofing inspection.
Yeah.
Okay, because most inspectors are not roofing professionals. They may highlight some issues, but sometimes if there's questions in our mind, we will get a specialist to review that. We work with our sellers to try to take any objection off the table, or any request for a reduction in price or additional work done that may uh, slow down the sale process or interrupt it. So people may terminate a contract because of concerns around the health of the home. And this is directly analogous to selling a business. I mean, you think you got the buyer, but then there are issues that come up, and, "Oh, whoa, wait a second, wasn't aware of that." That you make them question, do they wanna move forward? So, it's very analogous. I would tell you our experience, and I think it's true with business sales, is, uh, there are things that can be done reasonably inexpensively in preparing a home for sale that you get big, big bang for
Yeah.
in the sale.
Yeah, it's super similar, right? We're going to use an analogy here that might be a little cheesy, but getting your house in order or getting
Yeah.
your business in order. You don't ever put a house on the market without cleaning it up or at least knowing what the issues are. But oftentimes, business owners do that exact thing. They put a business on the market without understanding where the gaps are or where they're exposed financially, operationally, or, whether it's contracts with customers. And I think that's foolish, right? If you're going to
Yeah.
prepare for what it could be the biggest transaction of your life, then you need to know what's going to come up and hopefully have time to address those things to, like you said, um, be ready for those objections that come.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
I think of myself, John, in this particular role on our real estate team. And we encourage everybody on our team to think in terms of being a real estate wealth advisor. Not not a real estate agent, but a wealth advisor. So how can we make sure that our buyers are making sound investments in real estate? How do we make sure our sellers get the most from their real estate investment? And for most people, analogous to a business owner, for most people, their home is one of the single, if not the single largest asset in their financial portfolio. And
Yeah.
business owners, the business itself is probably the single largest next to their home, next to their home. But so, these are important, tangible assets to do everything you can to maximize the value.
And you've got one time to do it.
Yes.
You're not going to sell the same house twice unless there's a really random situation. So let's not leave money on the table.
Yes.
And, again, I'm going to use a cheesy analogy, but if your deck needs to be fixed, go spend the 10, 20, $30,000, whatever, to fix the deck. And the ROI on that will be hopefully exponential. The same thing with ad backs on a business. If you don't identify those ad backs and you don't know what they are and don't document them, you're not going to get credit from the buyer. And the buyer may find them, but they're not going to tell you about it, right? So again, I just think it's foolish. And just get it right and do it right the first time and only time.
Yeah.
One of the things we worked on a lot was the emotional attachment, or we work on this a lot when we're selling a business. I'd imagine it's the same with a house, right? Our clients always think their business is the best business out there, regardless of whether or not it's an HVAC business, fire protection business, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I'd imagine it's similar in homes, right? I raised my family in this house, or I met my wife when I lived here. How do you help clients prepare for what could be the emotional roller coaster that goes along with selling a home?
Well, my wife says frequently, we're therapists, as well as real estate agents frequently. Listen, buying, selling a home, buying, selling a business, it's an emotional process. I don't care who you are. And so, and what I would say to you is the direct analogy is people who have had a home built for them, it's an even more emotional process. There's a deeper sense of ownership where they've specifically designed and built it.
Right.
Okay. And one particular client where that was the case, we had movers come in to rearrange furniture from our perspective, because it would show better, only to have the owners that night move all the furniture back. Yeah. Okay. So there is this emotional aspect of it. And I mean, part of what we try to address with people up front and when they're selling is the mindset that one wants to get to. When you make the decision you're going to sell, is that this home no longer belongs to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It belongs to the next owner who's yet to pay me for it. But it's really no longer, I mean, and this is a little bit of a mind game, right? Because they still own it. But the mind game is what this comes down to, in my opinion, is taking advice from trusted professionals who are working on your behalf to make sure you get the maximum value.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it comes, and trusting them that they have insights that are going to pay dividends, and they have, they also have in our case, we have vetted vendors we rely on to help us prepare a home, right, at modest investment to get maximum value.
Yeah.
Well, and for at least for a home, I would tell you, there are very few times in one's life when one can triple or 5x an investment within 90 to 120 days. When you sell a home, that's one of those times.
Mm. And same for a business. We're going to talk a little bit later about how we assemble that right team, but I don't want to move on from the emotional aspect of this yet, because it's very similar in businesses, right? There's a sense of pride. There's a sense of attachment to what you've built, and there should be, and that's healthy.
Yeah.
But that's also why it's important to bring an objective team, someone who knows what you're going to go through, who's seen the playbook before. But you hit on something that I want to touch on, and that is looking at your business or your home from a buyer's perspective.
Yes.
Taking out that emotional aspect, taking out the image of your kids learning to ride a bike in the driveway,
Yeah.
and look at it from a buyer's perspective. Is that something that you do as you prepare your clients before you take them on?
Well, I think that in the first way in which we do that is we encourage them to get if they're selling, to get a pre-listing inspection.
Mhm.
And this is typically for a home, it's a $500 expense. I mean, it's not, I mean, you
It's
do,
nothing.
it's in the grand scheme, I think it's very small. But, we run into some people who have no more money. They don't want to make any investment. They're running. That's a whole different story. They're not going to get premium price. Okay. And sometimes we have to accept that that's the case. But, we're fortunate. Many of our sellers have that resource. They're willing to make that. You can decide. You can decide what you're going to do. Okay. But let's be informed because believe me, any buyer that's going to buy your house is going to have an inspection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So prepare yourself. Now, two different inspectors may come up with two slightly different lists. By and large, they're going to identify the significant issues. Okay. And, prepare yourself. Knowledge is information. You can decide what improvements you want to make, what you want to address. We will advise you. And oh, by the way, part of our concierge services, we have vetted vendors that can do that work at reasonable costs, in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the beginning of getting them to understand that there's a different set of eyes.
Mm. Well, and if I may, I'm going to make an analogy or to a deal that I'm currently working on. We have our client's been working with the same CPA firm for 20 years, and they've done very good by him, but they have zero experience in selling a business. Yeah. They can't articulate the tax implications. They can't understand some of the sophisticated buyer's treatment on inventory, for example, from a tax perspective.
Yeah.
So we have to bring in our network, we have similar vendors, similar service providers who are specific to M&A and can help their client navigate this transaction in a way that maybe wasn't the same person who helped you build the business, but can help you transact. So I think loyalty is a good thing, and
Yeah.
being loyal is a good thing, but also let's make sure you build the right team. So let's talk a little bit about that. How does the team building concept apply when selling a business from your perspective?
Yeah, well, so, in terms of the team, we have been but, so for the example might be, that you mentioned, repairing decks. We just, went it's under contract. It will close in 2 weeks. Our next door neighbor's home. They had to they have a double-decker deck and replace both levels because it was rotted out. That was, it was not an insignificant $47,000.
Yeah.
But it would have been a significant impediment to the sale of the home,
Mm.
okay?
Yeah.
So it was one, getting the right deck bids and having them select, but they had already moved. Our advice to them was, "We think your house will sell for more if we professionally stage it."
Mm.
Now, this is a luxury listing, okay? This listing was above 1.5 million. It was the stager we brought in was professional in luxury staging. And it makes a difference. We went under contract in 5 days, slightly above our list price. So, again, it's getting the professionals in that know also, there's individual tastes that people have, right? But then there's also knowing what buyers are looking for.
Mm. Yeah.
And those don't always match up with people's individual tastes.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think that's an analogy with a business. Business owners have many options in how they run their business, specifically the systems they might use. But, buyers are looking for certain things,
Mm.
right?
Yeah. Well, and first impressions matter. We're not going to we're going to run a process on the business sales side where we're not going to put everybody in front of our client. And we're sure as heck not going to let them come in and visit your facility until they've given us an offer that makes sense. But if they walk into your facility and it's covered in dust and it looks like a mess, that does not leave a good first impression.
Exactly.
And that's important because that mindset that a buyer sees, if they see that your office is filthy, what are they going to think about your financials, the way your people treat their customers? So first impressions matter. It's just something that came to mind while you were talking about.
Well, another analogy with regard to the sale of a house, similar, it just came to my mind as you were mentioning that was, why would you list with a real estate agent versus sell it on your own?
Well, that's don't jump ahead, Peter. I'm coming for that. No, but let's talk about that. It's a great point because
Well,
whether it's a home or a business,
what came to my mind was what you said, like, you're not gonna just show the business to anybody. Well, when you are selling it on your own, a home, and somebody wants to see your home, you have no idea of their ability to actually purchase that home,
yeah, amen.
okay? So what I would tell you is, when you're working with us, and I think most real estate agents, when the house gets listed, one, you can't get in to see the house unless you have an agent representing you. That agent should have done the due diligence to vet the person and know they qualify.
Amen.
Okay. Now, in some cases, that's an assumption. We don't always ask for proof of funds. But listen, if it's a if somebody says they're bringing a cash offer, we ask for proof of funds. Okay.
Yeah,
We're not letting anybody just in a $1.5+ million listing.
yeah.
And typically, we're there to show it, right?
Well, this is where the analogy falls apart a little bit because confidentiality doesn't necessarily matter as much when you're selling a home, right? Because you put a sign in the front yard.
Yes.
You don't put a sign in the proverbial front yard when we're selling a home. Um, because we care about confidentiality. It would be extremely detrimental for customers and employees to know, hey, we're looking for a buyer. So, I want to ask you about some of the mistakes you see from people who try to do a for sale by owner or think that they can save on commissions.
Yeah.
What do you see from that perspective?
Well, one, I go to what some of the facts are for real estate, uh, residential real estate, and the facts are, on average, people who sell their homes by themselves sell for between 6 and 11% less than what they would have achieved with a professional realtor. Okay, so they typically don't get as much. But I think probably more important, 75% of residential real estate transactions where one party is unrepresented by a professional real estate agent end up in litigation.
Mm,
So, I think some of the mistakes that are made is people I mean, typically in for sale by owner homes that we have previewed because we may have had a buyer interested. They've done an inadequate job of preparing their house to receive maximum value.
yeah.
There's way too much stuff in the house, right? They've not added fresh paint, which is probably the highest return on investment you can do.
Agreeable gray, right?
Yes, well, there are colors of the year and all of that, but yeah, in neutral colors, are important. Anyway, the mistakes typically are just in preparation. Sometimes in curb appeal, external landscaping, etc. But yeah, I mean, it's true. You only have, regardless, whatever sale you're making, you only have one opportunity to make a first impression. There's only one.
Yeah. And it's super similar with business owners. They think they see our fees. Now our fees are success fee based. But they think, "Oh, that's a big number." And it can be, for sure. But I have not left a deal where I felt like I didn't earn that. There's an exponential return when you create the leverage and you don't waste time. A lot of business owners get an email from a private equity firm that says, "Hey, I want to buy your business." And they think they're done. But what they don't realize is they're not creating the leverage that's really important by creating the market to ensure that they're not leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
And they think they can do it themselves without hiring an M&A advisor. And I think that's foolish. I think they leave a lot of money on the table.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to move towards was how do professionals, whether it's real estate agents or M&A advisors, create leverage or protect value in ways that sellers often don't see coming?
Uh, Wow. I mean, so one is just knowledge of one from my perspective. One is knowledge of the market.
Yeah.
In residential real estate, it's knowledge of what's going on in the market. The market's always moving one way or the other. It's never static. Uh, the strategy, pricing strategy is important. Okay. And we have a kind of a 3 different tier pricing strategy. So there's aspirational pricing. And what we would say about aspirational pricing is it's pricing that we limit to only homes that have extremely unique features or have a, celebrity appeal. So if you're selling Tyler Perry's estate, okay, which I think somebody just put on the market for 17.5 million, okay, in Buckhead. But if you're selling that, you've got some celebrity appeal. Understand? And what we can do is take that pricing strategy off the plate for 99.9% of our clients.
Yeah.
Okay. The second is market-based strategy, where you're marketing your home at what we'll believe is a fair market value based on a professional appraisal or a comparative market analysis. But the third that we've used successfully quite a bit this year is what we call event-based pricing, which is we price it slightly below the anticipated market value, creating demand, and where we create in buyers a FOMO situation, a fear of missing out, where they're not thinking about negotiating price. They're thinking about who else is going to be bidding on this, and we got to make our best offer
Yeah.
because there's multiple offers.
And that's extremely similar to what we do,
So
right?
so there's value in pricing strategy that people may not understand. Yeah, and then the amount of marketing that it goes in. And frequently, for sale by owners have no access to market and leverage marketing effectively for their home. But, and then, we also have technology. So, for people don't necessarily see, we got over 13,000 residents in Atlanta in our database. And our database allows us to see who has looked at listings similar to what we might be bringing on the market. Okay. And so we can approach those people and call those people and let them know something's coming on the market. And hey, would you be interested in seeing this?
Yeah. And it goes down to a saying, it comes back to a saying that I use often, and that is one offer is no offers. You have not tested the market to know what a sophisticated, well capitalized buyer will pay for your business if you just take the first offer that comes your way. And I think that is foolish. I think you leave a lot of money on the table. Again, to our point, this is one of the larger financial transactions you'll ever make in your life. Unless you're selling it to your family member, why leave money on the table?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I say, unless you explicitly choose to.
Yeah.
Maybe circumstances, and at least in residential real estate. I'll give you an example. We just went under contract on an estate property. Okay. Over 2 acres. House is a bit needing work, but the owner, again, it's an estate property. Uh, the buyer ultimately that she sold to wants to move into the house and restore it back to its, and expand it, as opposed to selling it to builders at more money. Okay, she could have sold it for more, but she decided not to because they would have bulldozed the home and built a $3 to $5 million property.
Well,
So that was her choice.
yeah. And that's fine to make that choice as long as it's informed.
It's an informed choice. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So, I want to go back to the inspections analogy versus diligence. Home inspections, a buyer's going to do one, much like a buyer's going to do significant due diligence. Some issues that arise are minor and some are deal breaking. In that for sale by owner, if that deal breaks, you've got no other options, right? In working with a professional like you or us, we build that market and we've got a plan B, sometimes a plan C, D, E, if we've done our job. And, that's an important thing. So tell me a little bit more about what deal breaking issues you see in a for sale by owner situation and how you address those as a professional agent helping the client get a deal done.
Well, I think, there are many hurdles. In residential real estate, there are many sales taking place. There's one, you can negotiate the purchase and sale, but then there's always the inspection,
Yeah.
and then there's the appraisal. And so, the inspection turns up items, right? Frequently. What we try to do is work with the other agent if there's another agent involved representing the buyer, making sure that they're talking their buyers off the ledge if it's appropriate. And if there's a safety issue, we're very clear with our clients. Listen, you got to repair this. There's some stuff we at least that's our counsel. Or you got to decrease the price. We're going to agree to a decrease. But we're fortunate in we try to address this stuff up front with our clients too, so that it's not a surprise. We because of the pre-listing inspection that we frequently have. Now, if they choose not to have it, I will tell you, my wife is probably better than most inspectors in what she's able to detect in a walk around a house. So, we're able to identify a certain number of things ourselves, but with that inspection, they begin to get educated about what are some of the potential barriers to sale, and we address that stuff up front with them. So, I don't know if that answers
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And that's,
me.
so that leads to kind of one of our final questions here. And I'm going to put you on the spot because it's hard to choose one thing. But what's one thing every homeowner should do before listing their home for sale? And we'll talk about what the equivalent is for business owners.
Yeah. Well, I've now offered a couple times recently, the if you will, an hour and a half talk on building wealth for real estate.
Okay.
I am very bullish on Atlanta and Atlanta real estate market, but the very first thing I tell people is the best advice regardless of what happens with real estate in Atlanta, the best advice I have for homeowners is if you've had your home 5 to 7 years and you've not had it professionally inspected since the time you bought it, you need to have it professionally inspected. Now, less than 1% of people do this.
Wow.
And why do I say that? Because we all, and this is true with business owners. Listen, I used to audit businesses for environmental health and safety issues.
Yeah.
And I don't care, homeowner, business owner, you begin to walk past issues. You no longer see them.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it's important to have an external perspective. You're talking about your house. It's if it's probably the single largest asset in your portfolio, you need to maintain the house. And there are maintenance issues that can cost hundreds of dollars that can, hopefully avoid thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. Right. So, and you can decide, get the list, be informed, make an informed decision. You can make a decision whether you want to make that investment in maintaining a home. But any serious issues, you really need to pay attention to.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I had to give that advice, number one, it's hard for me to choose one thing. But the thing I would say is you've got to know what your business is worth and what those value drivers are. So get that business valuation done years in advance of your exit and know what those levers are that you can pull. It's not as simple as having a deck rebuilt in a couple of weeks. Some of the things that we identified take time to address.
Yeah.
And if you have the energy and the money and the expertise to address those things, then do it. If you don't have the expertise, then bring someone in to help you so that you are, when you're ready to sell, not leaving money on the table and you're presenting the best version of your business to the market.
Yeah.
So, Peter, we've talked a little bit about this, but I want to drill down on the team.
Yeah.
What's it take, from your perspective, to build the right team to have a successful sale of your real estate?
Yeah. So we definitely, well, one, we are a team. So we have a team. So we have a listing marketing manager that helps market our listings. We rely on a transaction coordinator. So that's someone that once we go on under, we have an agreed to purchase and sale agreement, helps track all of the critical dates through that contract to make sure all of the dates are met and the people are informed. We can't close without a closing attorney. The buyer typically chooses the closing attorney. So we're in a state that requires a closing attorney. We typically are required to have an appraisal. So there's typically a mortgage involved. Some people are paying cash, but typical purchase involves a mortgage provider that's involved, and they have to have a professional appraiser come out and do an appraisal. That person, we don't ever just leave on their own. We as sellers are making a point of meeting the appraiser, if at all possible, and handing them, we don't try to influence it, we just hand them a packet that we have prepared of what we believe are comparables on the market, as well as the tax record for the home and any list of improvements that the owners have made, right? So that they are as informed as they can be about this home. I mean, like I'm sure you might do with a buyer of a business. So it's a team. There's a series of professionals required. I mean, we may deal with a professional appraiser in advance of selling the home. We can do a comparative market analysis, but I will tell you frequently we advise, listen, it's worth paying $500 to have a professional appraiser. Let's give us the market is shift. I mean, we do that particularly if the market is shifting or there's significant change. We recently, in Atlanta, we now have more inventory than we've had probably in 5 years. Okay, so it's become much more of a buyer's market than a seller's market.
Interesting.
So anyway.
Well, yeah, and let's talk a little bit about the team that it takes to sell your business the right way.
Yeah.
Obviously, an M&A advisor. I'm going to tell you need that. You also need a deal-specific M&A attorney, not the attorney who does wills and trusts, but someone who does business transactions. The same goes with your CPA, financial advisor. You've got to have these folks in the loop, and I equate it to a football team.
Yeah.
I take the role of quarterback, but I can't do it without a team, right? If we want to get a good deal done the right way, you have to go into it knowing what you're going to take home and how you're going to use that money. Is it enough to live on? 2, tax implications, net working capital. We can help with the net working capital. We can give you a high level tax, but you really have got to pull in an expert there. And all of this needs to be done well in advance of an LOI. It can't be done when the deal is getting close because you can't renegotiate, or it's hard to renegotiate
Terms. Yeah.
Go into this with all the knowledge, and it's very important. We have some prospects who say, hey, we don't need an attorney. Well, we're not going to work with those folks because you are leaving yourself so exposed if you get a deal done without the right team. So I agree. Super important to take. We call it the power exit strategy. If you want to exit your business under your control and on your terms, you do it by building a professional team who knows deals and knows the language, knows what's market.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like I can't imagine anyone buying a piece of property without having a title search. And even with that, buying title insurance. Right?
We've all heard the nightmares.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just one of those things. And people may say, well, why do I need that? Or why should I do it? But, it's basically to protect yourself.
Yeah. Amen.
Anyway.
Peter, I appreciate you being on the podcast today here.
Yeah.
Tell me, where can people connect with you and learn more about Chatel Group?
Yeah. So we have our branded website is at www.chatelgroup.com. And we have a home search site. There's the link to a home search site as well. They can reach me at peter@chatel, CHATEL group.com. And they can reach me by cell phone at 404-502-2884. And, we are with Keller Williams Atlanta Midtown. We service clients, first-time home buyers on up. We do deal with luxury homes, but that's not all we do. I don't want to give people no. I just looked at a condo in downtown Atlanta. A past client wants to sell near Georgia State University, in a wonderful, wonderful old building, the William Oliver building, built in the 20s.
Oh, wow.
The place needs a little bit of work before we put it on the market, but it's going to sell for probably 200,000. So, I don't want to. We deal with homes across the spectrum.
Yes. And you do it well.
Well,
Peter,
we,
thank you so much for being here today. You're a good friend, and I appreciate you taking the time.
John, I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you as always, and I hope people got some value from this.
Yeah, absolutely.